Good morning, all. It's wonderful to be here today. At the ACEC Research Institute, we're asking a defining question. What will it take for engineering firms to lead in the world of 2035? Our Firm of the Future initiative is helping to answer that question, building a forward-looking roadmap of the capabilities, technologies, and strategies firms will need to thrive, and a research agenda to guide the profession into that future. As we enter this next phase, one force stands above the rest in shaping that future: artificial intelligence, and its profound impact on how our industry works, competes, and delivers. To help us explore that frontier, we turned to Mike Walsh, global futurist, best-selling author, and CEO of Tomorrow, who many of you will remember for his compelling keynote at our fall conference, where he challenged us to rethink the role of AI in engineering and design. We're pleased to continue the conversation he began with new insights for Firm of the Future. Now, please direct your attention to the screen for a special message from Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Walsh, a futurist, the CEO of the innovation research group Tomorrow, and the author of a number of books on AI transformation. I've been working on a brand new report with the team at ACEC on the future of the firm. As part of that process, we've spoken to both engineering firms and thought leaders across the technology industry. What we found was really fascinating. What basically emerged from all the conversations we had is that the engineering industry, as we know it, is approaching a pivotal moment, not because of a single technological breakthrough or a sudden economic shift, but because the fundamental logic of how engineering firms create value is now changing. If you think about it, for decades, that model was relatively stable. Firms scaled through people, projects were delivered through effort, value was measured in hours. But that model is increasingly under pressure. Artificial intelligence is entering the industry as a new form of digital labor, not just a new tool. Systems that can generate designs, run analysis, coordinate workflows are happening at a scale that was, frankly, previously considered impossible. At the same time, as many of you know, the demand for infrastructure is accelerating, while the supply of engineering talent is also tightening. More work than people, more complexity than capacity. AI is arriving at exactly this moment. And as a result, the engineering firm is beginning to transform from scaling through labor to scaling through intelligence. And what we've seen is that across this revolution, 6 ideas are emerging. And we've grouped these into 3 deeper transformations. Firstly, how work is changing. Secondly, how firms are changing. And finally, how the entire industry is being redefined.
Thank you, Mike, for that thoughtful introduction and overview of our Firm of the Future findings. We'll hear from Mike a few more times to introduce key components of our forthcoming report. Now we're going to bring those ideas down to earth. To explore what these insights mean in practice for our firms, we've invited 2 leaders at the forefront of this work: Sean Young, Director and Head of AEC at NVIDIA, and Claire Rutkowski, Executive Director of AI Productivity and Enablement for WSP, to continue the conversation. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. All right. Thank you both for joining us today. We truly value the depth and experience that you bring and the quality that it adds to this conversation. To help frame where we're headed next, let's take a quick look at one of the key findings from the report, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss the implications for our firms.
Let's start with the first of these, how work is being reconfigured. And this transformation is really going to the heart of how the practice of engineering is being performed, how problems are solved, where value is created in the day-to-day activity of engineers. And at its core, we believe that this is a shift from execution to orchestration. So let's start with the first of these ideas. AI is expanding capacity, not replacing engineers. We see the most immediate impact of AI not on workforce reduction, but on capacity expansion. Tasks that once consumed hours, document review, design iteration, compliance checks, are increasingly being automated or even accelerated. The result is not fewer engineers. It is engineers with far greater leverage. The constraint is no longer headcount. It's how effectively firms can combine human expertise with digital systems. The second idea is that we see in the future that engineers will become system orchestrators. As AI expands what can be done, it also changes what engineers do. Instead of producing solutions directly, engineers increasingly define the systems that generate those solutions. They set the constraints. They define objectives. They guide exploration. And as AI systems generate and evaluate thousands, even millions of possibilities, the role shifts from creating to orchestrating, from solving problems step by step to designing the very platforms that solve them, which only makes one thing more important than ever: human judgment.
All right, Claire, let's go to you first. Mike makes the point that AI is not reducing headcount. It's expanding capacity and increasing leverage. From what you're seeing across industries, how real is that shift in practice for the AEC space?
Well, I think Mike's absolutely right. I think many of our staff would not be blamed for thinking that AI is coming for people's jobs if you look at the headlines. But I think a lot of that's misinformation. You know, a lot of companies are laying people off so they can fund AI initiatives, not because AI is directly replacing a person. And I also think blaming AI makes it more palatable to shareholders when covering up overhiring practices of the past. When it comes to the AEC industry, we all know that for the last 10, 20 years, aging workforce, skills gaps, and just not having enough people have been among the top concerns CEOs and CFOs have expressed in surveys done by ACEC Research Institute, BST, EFCG, AEC, and others. So, you know, I don't think that we're at a tipping point where AI is coming for people's jobs. For WSP and many firms, AI is a force multiplier. It expands our capacity to deliver value. We see it as a role evolution towards higher work, as opposed to taking away traditional engineering roles. And that means that we need to equip our people with the right tools and skills. We're making significant investments at WSP with Microsoft to equip our engineers, and Arcadis is another example. They've focused on getting 2,000 citizen developers amongst their staff by the end of the year, and that's a public commitment they've made. So I think Mike's absolutely right. We're shifting to AI enablement of the workforce, not AI replacement.
All right. Okay, Sean, now to you. Mike also describes this shift from engineers producing solutions to orchestrating systems that generate them. Inside of engineering firms today, what does that look like?
Sorry, could you, I missed the question.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Mike describes this shift from engineers producing solutions to orchestrating systems that create them. What does that look like inside of an engineering firm today?
Okay, yeah, I was looking at the wrong questions right before I came on stage, so I was like, all confused. Good morning, everybody. It's okay, I'll adapt. Okay, so what I've seen is AI is complicated. It's a real game changer in terms of the way we're all going to do our work. So I think what needs to happen is there needs to be a fundamental understanding of AI at the executive level, because we're transitioning from doing services and depending on technology that's sort of handed to us, and everybody in this room is working on the same technology and doing the same thing for years, and you sort of don't have control over that. You're not in control of the technology that you use and the way you use it. That is fundamentally about to change. So I think you need to think about, changing your mindset from being a services person that just uses the tools off the shelf and whatever they are you do, to being a technology firm and understanding the way that technology works and how you can harness it. And it's especially important right now because everything is about to change. And if you don't understand what is all the forces that are impacting your organization, you are just going to get lost and pulled in many different directions.
That makes sense. All right. Thank you. So what we've just talked a little bit about is how the work itself is changing from execution to orchestration. But that raises the question of once the work changes, what happens to the firm built around that work? So let's go back to Mike.
The second theme that we'd like to explore is this idea of reinventing the engineering firm. And this goes to the firm's structure, its economics, and ultimately the source of its competitive advantage. This is where the shift becomes structural, from organizations built on traditional labor to ones that are organized around intelligence. So the third idea that we've explored in the report is that the data itself is becoming a strategic asset. I mean, if you think about it, data has always been the heart of what firms do. Decades of project experience, the designs, the decisions, the outcomes, the performance. But historically, that data was either poorly stored or even sometimes forgotten. But in the future, it's going to become the very foundation for intelligence. It's going to allow firms to learn from every project, not just deliver the next one. And this will change the basis for competitive advantage from individual expertise of an engineer to institutional intelligence. The firm in this world doesn't just become a consultancy, but a platform for generating, applying, and scaling knowledge. The fourth idea is the hybrid human-AI firm. So the composition of the firm is going to change. It's going to become a kind of a hybrid system where you have human engineers working alongside networks of AI agents, really digital labor that can simulate, analyze, validate, and optimize work, not just in sequence, but in parallel. The result of this will be smaller teams, greater output, more complex problems that are solved faster and better. The defining capability of the firm of the future is not the size of its workforce, but its capacity to orchestrate and organize. How effectively firms can coordinate and balance teams of humans and groups of AI agents.
Okay, so Mike makes this point that data is shifting from something firms store to the very foundation of how they generate intelligence and competitive advantage. So Sean, from your perspective, what actually separates firms that will turn their data into a strategic asset from those that won't?
Yeah, I think, well, for most people in this room, when the project is done, the data goes wherever it goes. You probably don't even know where it goes. But what you're missing is that data is really your gold. It's your IP. AI needs data to understand what it's doing. You can teach an AI based on your data, as long as AI can harness it. So all of a sudden, now, you all do things a very specific way, a special way. Some of you have been around for a very long time, and you know better than anybody in the industry how the local building codes work and how your particular domain works, and you optimize your engineering around that. Just teach an AI that. But to do that, you need to use your data. So it all starts with the data.
Okay. All right, Claire. Mike also describes the firm of the future as this hybrid system, with engineers working alongside networks of AI agents, which he terms digital labor. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, so at the risk of disagreeing with our futurist, I would have to say, I don't actually think that is the firm of the future. I think it's already starting to happen now for many firms. Maybe not normalized, maybe not the way for everybody, but I do think that that time is already here. Engineers and scientists in many engineering and design firms are already starting to work side by side with AI agents, which are essentially like digital colleagues, handling a lot of the repetitive, coordination-heavy tasks that consume so much professional time today. These are the exception rather than the norm, but I'd call us at least in the early adopter stage. I'd say in the next 1 or 2 years, we're seeing this collaboration normalize. AI is already reshaping the day-to-day reality of how we respond to RFPs, for instance. That was sort of the seminal thing that many firms started with a couple of years ago. Because it's an easy data set. You can use it to practice building an LLM. You can use it to then feed preparing RFPs. It's also being used to prepare status reports, to prepare technical specification documents, and so on. So I think it's already coming. It's not that far away. It's here for lots and lots of engineers who are really getting into it. But if we look a year or two down the road, in the further future, then I think we see a world in which a team sits down on Monday morning to a status report, and agents have already been running generative design ideas to give them lots of options over the weekend that they come into. The AI's already looked at cost and schedule and flagged risks and issues. And the status report comes one not of information gathering, but of action taking on the information that's presented by the AI digital colleagues. I think the one thing that we all have to remember, though, is, it's not autopilot. Right? There's still absolutely a need for engineers to do their jobs and exercise their judgment. But I don't think it's that far away.
All right, Sean, the future is now. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, the future is now. It has arrived. Maybe you just can't see it, but I hope you can, because it's a meaningful change, and it's going to benefit all of us. But there's going to be some pain along the way, as there is with any transformation.
All right. Well, we've talked about how the firm itself is being reinvented, from labor-based models to organizations built around intelligence. But that raises a bigger question. If firms change, what happens to the entire industry around them? Let's go back to Mike.
The third section is how will the industry itself change? This is where we move beyond the firm to the industry itself, really going to the heart of how engineering firms deliver, how they engage with clients, where value is created across the entire life cycle of the built environment. The boundaries of the industry are going to begin to blur and shift. So the fifth idea is that infrastructure and assets become a form of continuous intelligence. As we said before, traditionally engineering was designed by its assets. We built assets and projects, and then we moved on. But the built environment is no longer static. We have sensors, digital twins, and connected systems that are turning assets into continuous streams of data. The built environment itself is becoming a living system, generating insight about performance, risk, and optimization in real time. This is going to change the model for engineering firms from episodic delivery to continuous intelligence, from one-off projects to long-term forms of engagement. The real value is going to shift to the project being delivered to what happens after the construction is complete. And that's the final idea we want to talk about, which is the potential emergence of AI native firms. Firms that were designed from the ground up to be based around digital systems, not retrofitted with them afterwards. They're going to operate differently. Automated workflows, integrated data platforms, AI-driven delivery models. This is going to change the competitive landscape, because in this new world, the question is no longer how do we effectively use AI, but rather how does a firm look like when it's been designed with AI at its core foundation?
All right, Claire, we're going to go back to you. Mike describes a shift from delivering projects as the end of an engineering engagement to this continuous intelligence concept, where assets themselves are generating data and value long after they're built. How realistic is it to move in that direction? And more importantly, what capabilities do firms need to develop if they want to stay engaged throughout the entire project lifecycle?
So, many of you probably remember 2010. Patrick McLeamy introduced the BIM Bam Boom model. And just to refresh your memory, BIM was all about the building information model. We know what that is. It's all for the design phase. And he put it to us that instead of that digital twin, that model, that BIM model, being done at the end of design and handing off to construction with PDFs, I hate to say the word, we should move into building assembly modeling, right? Which is the construction phase. And beyond that, into operations, optimization, using the same model. So this is not a new idea. It's been around for a very long time. And the economies of that are really important. For every dollar spent on the BIM model, 20 are spent in construction, and 60 are spent in operations. So the real opportunity for firms is in operations. And I think that for many of our firms, what really has to happen is having those systems around it in terms of predictive maintenance modeling, drones, remote inspections. We're already doing a lot of that already. We also have to be able to figure out how we handle the risk associated with that and how we charge for it. But many visionary private firms leapt on that sort of bandwagon of bim, bam, boom a while ago and have been working on it ever since. Public owners have been a little slower on the uptake, largely due to contracting methodologies, right? It's been very much design, bid, build, and move into operations and renewal. And each time a different contract, each time a different vendor. And so there are lots of natural breaks in that process. But I think we can look to February of this year as a seminal example with the Port of Los Angeles. They issued an RFP for the development and implementation of the Port of Los Angeles digital twin. It's not a one-time study. The port has 7,500 acres, 43 miles of waterfront, and carries cargo valued at $1 billion. And what they're really looking for, and I'm quoting here, is a modern integrated platform for situational awareness and planning that will unify data systems and workflows into one spatial environment. So while forward-looking private firms have already been on that journey, the public firms are now there too. And the same is true for state DOTs. I don't have time to go into all of them, and municipalities. But I think the shift is coming. It's turning for the public sector as well as private.
All right, okay. Mike raises another idea in the clip you just saw, which is the emergence of AI native engineering firms. So the concept that there will be these firms built around digital technology from the ground up as opposed to adapting existing models. Now, Sean, how real is that threat or opportunity? And do you expect the biggest disruption to come from existing firms adapting to AI or from entirely new firms designed around it?
What an interesting question. We were totally going over that 4-minute countdown. And I want to build on what Claire said. So I guess question for the audience, how many of you have been started doing your job before computers? Come on, yes, all right. And now, so here, for those of you who have seen that, experience of work before computers, now all of a sudden computers come around. Now all of a sudden CAD comes around. Now all of a sudden BIM and 3D and VDC and blah, blah, blah comes around. And at the end of the day, like my view, because I wasn't there, but my view is nothing's changed. Because at the end of the day, in the construction site, you're still dealing with like 10,000 documents. Has anything really changed? You're using a lot of technology, but the process, this is my hypothesis, the process is exactly the same as it was. All you firms are doing things pretty much the same way you did, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, on stone tablets. It's still the same way. You draw you just have people typing stuff and clicking on buttons, but at the end of the day, there's no intelligence. At the end of the day, in the construction site, you're looking at all these papers trying to figure out which way is up and which trade does what, and it's a bit of a mess. So I think, when you look at AI, I don't see an AI as just another step along the way. You've gone from, CAD to BIM, and now you're going to AI. I see AI as completely reinventing the way you work, and that fundamentally impacts productivity. Because, I don't know that productivity has improved with computers and CAD and BIM. It still probably takes the same amount of time, which is why you all charge by the hour, because nothing's changed. But your technology costs have gone up, but are you monetizing that? No, because productivity hasn't changed. So all of a sudden you introduce AI and everything completely changes. And going back to the McLean-Me curve, as an example, I have my laptop here, and whoever wants, I can show you a demo. I could generate a set of construction docs from an RFP, and along the way generate, from an RFP, a full Excel document with a complete, production schedule and all of that, costing, conceptual model, full BIM, and of course construction docs, and some renderings by prompting it into an agent. I could show you this, okay? That is a complete game changer. And also, like, having that from a McLeamy curve perspective, having that all that information early in the conceptual stage gives a whole new understanding to what you're getting everybody into. And you can iterate and refine. So now, going back to the question, I think, the big question for, I guess, Claire, 72,000 employees at WSP, and others in the room, can you adapt to this? Because, there's some firms, I don't know if you guys know KP Reddy, he believes, why try to, force the adaptation? He's going out and buying firms that are capable of doing the delivery and re-instrumenting them to be completely AI native. Very small firms, but no people doing the traditional methods, completely AI native. So I think, things are going to change for big firms, small firms, and medium-sized firms. And, I think you just need to know what's happening from a technology perspective to make the right decisions.
Wow. Well, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Claire, for your time and your perspective. Before we close, a final thought from Mike.
Taken together, these 6 ideas in this report describe something much bigger than just the adoption of new technology tools. They describe a reinvention, a redefinition of the firm, a shift from effort to intelligence, from projects to platforms, from execution to orchestration. The firms that succeed in the future, we believe, will not be those that simply adopt AI or new technology tools. They will be the ones that redesign themselves around. Because in the future of engineering, value will not be defined by how much work you do, but rather by how intelligently you do it.
All right, everybody. If this conversation sparked some ideas, or possibly your blood pressure, we invite you to join us this morning at 10:30 a.m. in the education session, Aligning AI and Talent, Building the Engineering Workforce of the Future, where we'll take a deeper look at the research and dive into 6 strategic moves firms should consider on the roadmap to the firm of the future. We hope to see you there. And if you'd like to explore the full report, please scan the QR code on the screen. We'd also like to extend our thanks to our Research Institute donors for their generous support that makes this work possible. So thank you.